just chatting. And we're back to author track, and we've been chatting and, of course, sharing all kinds of juicy good stuff. Oh. So anyway, Michelle is in the midst of saying how important the street team is and doing it early ahead of time. Go ahead, love.
I created a Google form that I can share with you about. So I put on like Facebook, anybody interested in being on my street team, click on this link, and it took them to a Google form where I collected their information. And I can share that, send that Google form to you, and then you can create one that is specific to yours. I actually didn't create it. I kind of stole it from Stephanie Black when she was getting ready to launch one of her books last fall. So, you know,
highest form of flattery, right?
Yeah. In fact, I made a mistake and did not update one of the bottom of my things, and it said something about Stephanie on it. And one of them said, "I'm not sure what this is." Like, oops. So,
that's funny. Oh,
yeah. Just say I was writing in code.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, a memoir to suspense. Cloak and dagger. Yeah, got it.
Same thing, really. So close. I love that. And I love your sort of testimonial on start that street team early and then love them, right? Love them because they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. So send them a Crumble gift card, send them an Amazon gift card, send them things that say, thank you so much, because they are saving your bacon. And if you choose street team people that are wise, that have some kind of a following or something, it's so helpful to give them, make it sure it's a win-win for them, and it's worth every penny because people see that stuff. And especially if it's a good fit, a street team person that they have avid readers or they're really close to Christ for what you're doing, Michelle, or if it's someone who's been dealing with cancer and you know them and they're on there, or it's a presence, oh, so helpful. So that would be my number one thing, would be start thinking of your street team. So in the next few weeks, I encourage you to just brainstorm a scaffolding for your marketing plan. Don't get stressed, but just start brainstorming bullet point ideas and thoughts. And then we can come back, you can gather it and start putting it in. Oh, that would probably be good the first month. That would be good the second month. That would be good the week before launch, whatever. And then you can just start filling it in a nice, calm way because we have a couple of weeks. So that would be really good. Awesome. I don't want to take any more time on these awesome ideas because you have better ones, Michelle. We want to hear from you about Brandon Sanderson, but first let's have a prayer. I'm going to pause the recording super fast. All right. It is off to you, sweet Michelle. Do you need to share?
I'm looking at a Word document right now. Can you guys see me? Or okay. So Brandon Sanderson started out by saying, so just kind of, I guess, for intro, this was a class that I took at Storymakers in 2023, where Brandon Sanderson did a 2-hour intensive on marketing as an author. And so I'm just going to give you his latest. And he started out by talking about survivorship bias, that maybe when we've done it, maybe we think it's because of what we did, but maybe it was just the luck of the draw. So he really was kind about saying that I don't know it all. This is just what worked for me. And maybe I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And maybe I've got some strategies that are good. So that's kind of the caveat, is take what he says and adapt it, I guess, to what fits with you. He started out by talking about the bad news in being an author at this point in time, and probably in pretty much anything we're doing. He says it's very difficult to market for free. The platforms, the social media platforms and different things, they're not focused on growth anymore. They're focused on revenue. And he said bad news is that corporations have also learned the value of social media. And he said the bad news is that the noise has never been louder in people's lives than it is now. And it was starting to kind of level out, but then the AI boom came and changed everything. And he said the bad news is it's never more important to do social media than it is now. That back in the day, you could do news presses, and marketing was done by bookshelf placement in a store you walked into, and there was it. And he said, but Google and Facebook, etc., when they're converted, it's 4 times your investment. So, and then he made the comment that people don't buy books from the bookstore anymore. Some do, but a lot of them don't. So he started out with the bad news. He concluded with the good news. So we'll get there after we go through his things. Just kind of interesting to tell a little bit about his story, because I think it's very instructional. He said from the mid 2000s to about 2015, social media was not gated to get your message to your fans. In 2006, he had his first book tour, but no one was at his book signing. So he started tweeting, I'm going to be at such and such place. I'm going to be at such and such place. By 2007, his book signing numbers had increased. And by 2008 book tours, they were just escalated everywhere. So getting the word out to people where and what really took off. He said between 2015 to 2019/20, social media was not quite as big of a deal, because what was the bigger deal was your consistent releases. Now, that was speaking to authors who are repeating things, was having consistent release, but it applies in the fact that it's a consistent message. You're continually out there. And he talks about that a little bit later too. And he said from 2020 on, things changed because Amazon switched. And I don't know if you remember in the days when you'd buy something, right after that, it would say, people also like this product. And then they would have a list of them. And now that's clear down at the bottom. You have to scroll to find a lot of these things. And what you get are sponsored books. So you're getting a lot of this advertising. So he said the way to make things work is through a consistent presence on social media in a non-viral way. And you're going to love this part, Connie. He said the number one thing to do is build a brand. So he said the way you cut through all of the noise is you brand yourself so people can recognize you. And he said you can brand yourself in a wide way. It doesn't have to be, for an author, a branded genre. He said really good branding carries across genres, or in our case with the DTL, good branding would carry across things like your service staircase. Good branding would carry you through podcast or through books or through speaking or whatever. It carries you across. And he used his example. He said his brand is kind of magic systems. And when I thought about that, I thought, yeah, that's right. Or even fantasy, that's right. But he has written for middle grade, young adult, and adult. And all of his products have something similar, that there is some kind of a unique magic system in them. He says he's also added a mental health part in his epic fantasies. Before he started writing, if you wanted a book on mental health, you got a book on mental health. But now he's adding characters in there that all have some kind of struggle. So those are some of the things that he has branded himself with. And that is allowing him to do what he wants, because his brand was not, in the author world, oftentimes you're branded as nonfiction, or you're branded as middle grade or something like that. But if you find something that's across, then you can brand yourself for other things. Was there a comment?
No, that was it. I was just saying the same thing. Yep.
Okay. But it did say once you brand yourself, you are putting yourself in a box. So you have to decide whether or not that bothers you. And if you do, then you write or under a pseudonym. So a lot of people do that. Now I take a look at Jennifer Nielsen, and she is branded with an age and a content, but she writes historical and writes fantasy. So she's kind of straddled both, but you always know kind of what age group that she's writing to. So then he said things that are good for branding is you find a passion that is yours. And social media should be, he said, 1/3 of the post should be entertaining. And it made me think of what Katrina had said. The 4 E's are entertaining, educational, enlightening, and I can't remember what the other one was. Anyway, those are the things that you want to do. He said, then, so you're giving your social media posts out, you're giving value, which is what we talk a lot about in the DTL. And then he says, then you do an important campaign where you get, when you do this campaign, you get your subscribers for now. So most of the time you're not always after a call to action. He says, you don't want to nag your audience always with a call to action. You want to surround it around a campaign or something that you're doing. That was, I know there are a lot of different thoughts about this, but that was just his recommendation. So he says, what do you like? Look for a passion that is yours and that you can spread across different, like for us, podcasting and speaking and author and whatever. What is your passion? And then you can use your passion when you make posts, and people will love them because they're your passion, and they'll see it's you, and then they will be drawn to you out of all of the noise. He did say right now the most effective form of content are the short form videos, reels, short videos that you can put on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. He said that right now, currently at this point, is the most effective form of marketing.
Can I just interject? And I know
yeah.
Lamar's been telling us that because these things trend, right? But the principles and the pieces are the same. People said, oh, Instagram and stuff like that's going to go away. So there's the pieces that will stay, but then the iterations can change. And the reels right now, they're educational. So they're moving away from the dance videos and the kind of quirky things, but the reels are more to be more educational. So I love that you bring that up, that right now, that's what's kind of trending, but keep going with what is going to be most useful. Go ahead.
Yeah, and give, like we've talked a lot about with the DTL, give your audience, your followers value. So he said then the next thing is a solid website. And we've spent a lot of time on that, so I won't go into more on that. And then he said your social media platforms. And he said different platforms work with different audiences. So look at the algorithms and find your audience. And so they were right now, they talked about YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, and Facebook. They hardly used Facebook, but they did because you can do it with Instagram. Those were the social media platforms that his marketing team focuses on right now. But if you're doing some things like speaking, maybe you want to be on LinkedIn, and maybe you want to be more on Twitter. So you need to find your audience and then pick the social media platform that goes with them. So he said, think about your call to action and make a constant campaign out of it. So if you've got a book launch coming up, you're going to feed your people with a lot of value. This is it, coming. And then right around that campaign, then you hit the call to actions, then you back off of it so that people aren't feeling like all you're doing is buy my book, buy my book. And I have a friend who, when I look on her Instagram page, that's it. Every post is buy my book. This book's on sale, this and this and this. And I'm like, why would anybody want to follow her? Because all she's giving them is buy my book. So that was, he said, try and build your big, heavy pushes for your call to actions around a campaign. So when a book launch is coming out, or when you're doing a speaking tour, or you're starting a podcast, or things like that, find a campaign, which is what he did with his Kickstarter campaign. And he said the secret of success is good time management. And so he said that now he started out, he talked a little bit about how he did this amazing Kickstarter campaign. That doesn't really apply to us, but if you're interested, I can go ahead and run through that really fast because I found it really interesting. He said first off, he had the time, and then he had a project. So that was, then he built a narrative, and he thought everyone is locked down during COVID. So Brandon writes 4 novels. This was his narrative, and he got his team buy-in, and then they worked on feasibility. So then he built this video. So they've got all of these, he's got the product, he's got an exciting project, and he built a narrative around it. And that came out in his videos. And the video was, I need to come clean, in essence. And he sucked everybody in right there. They're like, he needs to come clean from what? Is he not going to write anymore? Is he, you know, what does he need to come clean about? So he built the suspense. I need to come clean. And then it's a secret. Don't tell. Share this video so that somebody else can do it. And that was how so you get in the middle of his video, and then he says, well, during COVID, I wrote 4 books. And everybody's like, whoa. And so then he invited everybody to share that video, and the video went viral, which he says normally he doesn't get that much on his videos, but this one went viral for him. So that was the plea. And so he had a good narrative in his Kickstarter campaign. And he said that, so he started out the beginning with, it's a bad news about being an author. But he said, actually, here's the ending. Now is the best time to be an author, because there is no one between you and them. You don't have to take your book to a buyer who then takes it to Deseret Book, or Barnes & Noble, who then may or may not decide to face it or just slip it in there or tuck it away. He said, there is nothing between you and your fans. He said, through social media and a mailing list, you can communicate directly with people, and they won't get, other companies, the middleman won't get in between you. And that's why we've talked a lot about in the DTL, you've got to have a website and a newsletter, because social media or YouTube or Google searches, everything changes. But if you can communicate with your readers or your followers through a newsletter, then you can say whatever you want to them, because there is nothing in between. So that is another thing that he has branded himself with, is communicating with his readers and being prolific. Well, a lot of readers will say, and he looked at this audience full of romance writers who produce 4 or 5, 6 books a year. And he says, okay, I'm not prolific compared to you, but compared to high fantasy, epic fantasy, I'm very prolific. But he says he communicates with his followers. So you go to his website and it shows when this is coming out, when this is happening, and when this is happening, so that there is no guesswork behind it. And he has clear lines of communication, and he can do that through his website and his newsletters. So in a nutshell, that was his prepared portion of the class. And then he did a Q&A. And he said, one thing to realize, that we are all in the same boat, that in cutting through the noise, we are all in the same boat. And it made me think of some of the other classes that I took and other things that we've talked about this here, where all boats rise on the same sea. And our real competitors are not each other. Our real competitors are video games. Our real competitors are all of the distractions out there in the world. And if we can realize that as we support each other, we can all lift and identify who our real competitors are. So in a nutshell, that was speed dial through what Brandon Sanderson said.
2-hour intensive. You're amazing. That's
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good.
Definitely.
So good. Was there any last thought that stood out to you, a quote that he said, or a piece or a tip that wasn't in that linear thing that stood out to you? You're like, I am going to do that.
He talked about avoiding burnout. And I really liked that. He said, to avoid burnout, someone asked him, how do you avoid burnout? And he says he uses good time management. He will schedule writing time and then he will schedule time to go play with my son. So that, and it sounds kind of like, well, you're going to schedule your family. And he says, but that's the way he can get his work done and his family done, is that he puts parameters around it. And then he says, then you have to be flexible. And he talked about his wife. Some weeks she'll be fine with just a little bit of, with one schedule. And then the next week, and she says like, oh, she doesn't need that much time. But then the next week she needs more. And even though the time structure is the same, so he said, you need to be flexible. But he said for him, the way he avoids burnout is he schedules it. He uses time management and schedules in the things that are important to him, so that he doesn't always have to do marketing or always writing books or always doing whatever. He schedules a balanced life. And I thought that was very powerful.
That's huge. And then sticking to it. Sounds like he commits to it. That's so good. Love. Jerusha, any takeaways from what Michelle has said? Anything that's really resonated with you personally?
Oh, gee, it was all good. But what you just said, I was thinking, yeah, a good schedule has structure, but also flexibility. It's not so rigid that it doesn't have flexibility, but it's not so flexible that there's no structure. So it sounds like he's figured that out. And I think that as a mom, and that is really important, crucial even, because I don't know how we can function otherwise.
Love, love, love. I'll tell you, several things that you said. I mean, I feel like what he's saying, honestly, is so validating to what we're doing in the DTL. That just thrills me to my soul. Yeah. We are telling you solid, value-based, time-tested things that will keep working for you, which makes me so thrilled.
There's nothing between you and the reader.
Yeah, I like that too.
That's huge, because time alone is.
Yes. And the importance of that newsletter, that is one of the most underestimated tools that we have, because even though people are like, I don't open those emails, whatever, our job is to make those emails open worthy, that when they open them, they know there's value in there. They know they're going to get something good every single time. There's a reason why they should open that and prioritize that particular newsletter. And we probably all have maybe one or two newsletters that I'm like, I actually open those. Like I actually look at those because they're valid to what I need, and they always give me good value. So that's a really important piece with the DTL that we do. One of the things that stood out to me a lot, that just hit me right to my soul, that I need to do is connect and communicate more with my audience. I feel like, we can get to a point where we're posting and we're doing stuff, but I don't know if you've hit this point where it can be very posting instead of connecting. I'm putting out information so I stay as a presence and you can see I've got something that maybe draws you in, but it's hard to have the energy and be in that space to keep giving out who you are and coming up with the things that you want to share and stuff. That if you're not a Sarah Clark, you don't want to dance around the kitchen, right? Like, how do you connect with each other genuinely and in a way that makes sense? And as you were speaking, some thoughts had come to mind of, I really do need to buckle down and do LinkedIn and Twitter. I know this isn't about me and this isn't for me, but as you were talking about that, and then a couple of years ago, I had this thought of, I really need to be more personal with my readers. I keep a buffer and it's intentional, but they have asked for a little bit more of personal connection with me. And I've got to find the way to do that, maybe from the chair, the comfy chair or something, where I just sit in the comfy chair and just share a thought or something that helps them see and experience me, where I'm not just a speaker, a writer, a media presence. And I would say the same thing for both of you, that I think if I could go back and change anything, I just haven't had the bandwidth, but if I could change anything, I would be more consistent in that, where I would share a story, share a thought every week, and they could count on it. A Monday motivational thought, a Tuesday connect with me thought, a something that says, I'm going to get Connie, I'm going to get Michelle, I'm going to get Jerusha just for a few minutes and find out what's on her mind, or what's been amazing to her, what's been life-changing, whatever. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I like that. Some of the, I know that some of the general authorities, it's really interesting. Everybody says, oh, we saw Elder Gong at Roots Tech, in a video in Hawaii, not wearing a suit and tie, and and it's like, oh, they are people. And some of the reels that I've done, I put myself off in doing reels because it's like I get up and I do, and I don't always get my makeup on, and I'm not always looking pretty and beautiful. But some of the reels that I've done where I'm just like, okay, I'm a hot mess. I just got through exercising my hair, but this is what I thought of. Those are they kind of attract people as well, because they see me put together, but then they also see me as a real person.
Love it. In fact, I just did a story the other day about pickleball. I just came out in my car and like with 3-second video of something, just said pickleball. It's like so much better than a treadmill. And I'm getting all these cute comments and they're like, oh, I love your ponytail. And I'm thinking, I almost didn't do it because I got these big ears and the hair doesn't quite cover. It was all sweaty. And I was like, too bad. There you go. It's pickleball. I don't look like I just came off the runway, But anyway, I think this is, a variety of connecting with them that still keeps a personal buffer so you don't feel like your whole soul is open to everyone. I think it's smart to hold back and keep a space for yourself and your family. But I do think that we can be more connecting than what we are, instead of just, I've got these posts and I'm putting them out there. So that was just the thought that came to mind. Love. Anything else?
You talked about reaffirmations. I took some other classes on website design and landing pages, and then I took one marketing, build your brand and still have time to write. And she just breezed through all of Foundation 5 and Tier 1. It's like, okay, we are on the right track, because
Can I ask who it was?
Give me a second and I could tell you. One of them that I took notes from was Rachel Huffmeyer. She talked about building a website. And let me get into my document here and open my older documents. Building an author brand and still have time to write. Her name was Stephanie Hohl, Hohl. And then another one that I took from, she was specifically on landing pages, was see, an effective landing page, Lisa Crandall, Crandall. So you could probably find some of them on Facebook, at least as an author presence, even if not as a friend presence. But they, Lisa Crandall does a business of a website and landing pages, and I know we've got Tasha who does them, and everything that they were talking about was like, it was very interesting. And again, trends change. So in the last one, or the one that I took that went through everything, building your brand and still have time to write, was she talked about whenever you have your call to action, have a pop-up. But in the other two classes, they said, don't do pop-ups. And they all asked, what do you guys think of pop-ups in your, and the whole class was like, I hate pop-ups. I hate pop-ups. And she said, we don't want to tick off our potentials. So their advice was not to do pop-ups. And so basically the advice is kind of
contradictory.
Yeah, and I think I hate pop-ups. I will never do a pop-up because I hate pop-ups. So, but some people have success with them.
For the pop-ups, I don't mind pop-ups if it's resonating, if it relates to what they're talking about, and it's something I would obviously want, and they're easy to click out of. Then I don't have a hard time. Those pop-ups that you have to look around and try to find a little X and everything that drives you crazy. I'm just like, I'm done with the site, and I just go out of the site. But if it's easy to click out of, or if it makes sense, like, oh, exactly what they're talking about, I want to know what they have or more, or, oh, if I'm a fit, then that's why we do like a life shift quiz, or that we're doing the speaker writer quiz. And I'm not justifying why we do it. I'm just saying, I've noticed when I'm on the other side that if it makes sense to me, then I'm okay with it. So again, it's a principle. Is it time tested? Has it shown and proven its value? And then does it make sense for you to use it? Because even if it's been successful for other people, it doesn't mean it makes sense for your audience. And even when people have told me don't use X, Y, and Z, they said that with QR codes. Like 2-3 years ago, they're like, oh, QR codes are so out. Don't use QR codes. We kept using them. And guess what? The women love them. And it came back around. Why? Because they're user friendly. Everybody can use a QR code. They just go like that. And then they get the information they want. So I don't know. It really is listening, taking it in, and then sifting against those things. Does it resonate? What does it make sense for you to use it? Has it worked in the past? Will it work for them? Will it be relatable for your audience? Will it be beneficial for them? And to me, all marketing, I was writing down before you started, all marketing to me should come down to this one question: how is it benefiting my audience, my client, my reader? What is it doing for them? How is it benefiting them and helping them? Because if it's not, it's not even worth their time. But if you're giving them some kind of value, something, and then even over delivering in that value, then they're going to trust you and they'll come back. I remember there's a lady on, what is her name? She's one that talks with the Australian accent, blonde. Oh, what is her name? And she did a lot of courses like 2-3 years ago. She was all over the place and she was all about courses and how you do courses. So not Amy Porterfield, but someone that was like that, but blonde. Anyway, with the Aussie accent, darling. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I should do a course or something of hers, but I was so done with people like purporting to do things and then it didn't do what it said. And I talked to a couple of people and I said, hey, have you tried any of her, opt-ins or anything like that? They're like, oh, she has good value. Same thing with Amy Porterfield. They're like, she has good value. It isn't just a bait and switch. She really does give you good value and it's great stuff. So it's worth your time. That's worth everything. Then you didn't even have to reach 20 times, 18 to 20 times this person. That reference, that referral, boom, they're already sold on what you're doing because the friend just did it for you. Any last thing before we wrap up?
I think that goes back to what Brandon Sanderson was saying about if you are well branded, then it will self-filter out. People will find you because they're looking for your brand and they're looking for what you have to offer. And one last thought that I have, and it came from Lamira today in our tier 1. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I don't have time. I'm behind on my deadlines. And Diane was saying, everybody's always behind on deadlines, so don't worry about that. But then Lamira said, and I loved this phrase, God is bigger than algorithms.
That's so good. That is so good. That needs to be on a pillow at Deseret News. That's what needs to be. I love that. And let's remember that he can work with anything. He can take the little bits that we have and somehow get them to other people. I just did that discovery call with the gal that was our last sign up for filling our June retreat a month ahead of time. And she told me, she said, well, I found your book, 40 Days with the Savior, and I do book clubs. So I ordered a bunch of books and we were doing it as a book club. Had no idea. And now from that, she connected with Katrina, connected with my stuff, did a discovery call, and now she's coming to the retreat. Wow, God can work with anything. You've got to give him something to work with. I love it. It's bigger than the algorithms. Beautiful. Ladies, what a beautiful, beautiful thing. I know that we're out of time, but if you want, please put your goal in the WhatsApp. Tell us how last week's goal went, and then tell us about this week's goal, because I know it's a little bit different this week, just with coming on a little bit later, but doing our Brandon Sanderson thing, which was fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. This was so good. Took a whole page of notes. So post your last week's goal success, and then or wins and learn, and then this week's goal, so we can come back and figure out how everything went next week. And then again, let me know what way I can help you in the next week so that we can really wrap up this one major goal that you want to get done with this author track, so we can make sure you get it wrapped up.